Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Hello again, everybody. This is the Coach Shannon Griffith, and welcome to another edition of the Hoosier Football Tailgate here on the Believe Network. Michigan recap, and the Hoosiers moved to 10-0 with a big 20-15 win against the Wolverines, and we're going to talk all about that here just in a short bit. But first, want to pay some bills. Want to thank Bet Online for all they do for Hoosier Football Tailgate. Remember, Bet Online is your number one source for all things sports wagering, from the NBA, NHL, college football, NFL football, you name it. They have something to bet on with all in-game live odds, different point spreads and teasers, and also a casino that you could step into after all that, play a game of blackjack if you should dare, or play one of their 150 different slot machines. That's Bet Online. Bet Online, the game starts here. And for the Hoosier Football Tailgate, you can find all of our affiliates on HoosierTailgate.com, as well as our link tree. There's a shop button. After you get to the link tree, it will outline all those affiliates. If you happen to buy something from there, we thank you in advance, and we will receive some type of commission. But if you do so, we much appreciate that as well. And before we get going here, if you're listening to us via podcast, please do us a favor. Give us a like there, subscribe, and also provide us a review. It helps greatly. And if you hear this, if you're on one of our video platforms, if you could go to one of those podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, and you could provide a review for the Hoosier Football Tailgate, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you can subscribe to those channels like YouTube and hit the notification bell, you will be notified when we drop a video. So I thank you all for that. Let's get on to the Michigan Wolverines and the Indiana Hoosiers in a game that I tell you how I said something to this effect is that Indiana, although they got the win, it was a ugly win, if you want to say that, from that point of view. And it was one of those things that Indiana needed a win like that. And you probably think that's a little strange to say, but you know, when you can find ways to win a game, when you are not maybe playing overly well offensively, or the defense you're facing has pretty much got your number on the day and things are not going your way, but you can still find ways to win, it just solidifies the group of players even more. That there's something bigger than themselves at play here. They know that they're fighting for a chance to be a part of the college football playoffs. They know that when one side of the ball is not playing well, they have to pick each other up, and that's part of complementary football as well. Is when one side is suffering or not getting the breaks per se, you come along and find a way to help them out, and that happened on Saturday. And I've said before that turnover margin in these type of games is critical, as well as the hidden yardage in the special teams. And then, of course, when your special teams can score or set up a score, like Keyshawn Williams did, and Indiana get points off of that, it's a huge boost into what may or may not be occurring that day. And as you saw Saturday, that was kind of the drive after that return by Williams that kind of catapulted Indiana into, you know, the driver's seat and full control of that football game, because for the better part of the second half, Michigan controlled. They had the time of possession. They had more drive. They put together more longer drives, and Indiana just struggled all day offensively. They never outside of the first three drives, which two of the three were scores. After that third score, Indiana really struggled from that point forward. And Michigan had a good plan against them. I mean, quite honestly, I thought maybe they were blitzing them a lot. And the fact of it is they were not. I mean, they did bring some pressure every now and then, brought a 5-man pressure, did some zone blitzes, which is kind of in line with Wink Martindale's philosophy. And the thing that they did quite a bit of is they played quite a bit of man-to-man coverage, even though they may have been in a shell coverage. They were playing a lot of two-man under type of stuff. And doing that takes away your ability, especially with the RPO game. There was some forcing of the RPO game, at least I thought there was, but at the end of the day, we'll get into some of that in the video aspect of things. But like I said, it was a game the Hoosiers needed, and they found a way to achieve what they needed to achieve Saturday, and that's all that matters. Hoosiers surged number 5 in the AP poll and 6 in the coaches poll, still behind Penn State, who is a one-loss team. Now, I'm not going to sit here and, dissect why or why not and this or that, because at the end of the day, we're beyond that. It's the point of the college football playoffs, kind of where they see Indiana. They had them ranked 8 last week, but they were a 9 seed when all the things fell together. BYU holding on in their game Saturday night against Utah, but the people in front of Indiana all had losses. Georgia lost, which was huge. And that one in itself kind of created a domino effect that allowed Indiana to really jump up the polls in both of those cases. So right now they're sitting at number 8 overall, or 5 overall in the AP poll, 6 in the coaches poll. And then we'll find out tomorrow night at the college football playoffs poll that will be on ESPN. Where are they at with the college football playoff polls? Now, I saw some algorithms that basically said if Indiana beats Michigan, their chances of getting in the college football playoffs was like 95%, 96% to that extent. So, that is something that if that comes to fruition, everybody, including Coach Sig and everybody that's involved with the Indiana football program, should be very proud of where they're at in terms of the college football world and how they've turned it on its ear this year, A to Z. And right now, it's interesting in the AP poll, 4 out of the top 5 are Big Ten teams. So it's a pretty dominant AP poll with Big Ten teams in the top 5, and then of course dotted throughout the top 25. So that's going to be a huge thing when if the opportunity presents itself. I know right now mindset is they get a week off. We'll talk about the bye week here in a second, and a chance to go play Iowa State for essentially a chance to play in the Big Ten championship game, which will be against Oregon, if they can win the final 2 games of the year, being at Ohio State and then at home to Purdue. So at this point in the year, anything is possible, and Indiana has as much choice or chance of going to the game as a Big Ten member school as anyone, and we'll find out here in a couple weeks. So in that case, it's all a bed of roses as we move forward in this season to date. Sig cashes in again, $600K in bonuses thus far, $250K from this past Saturday. It also earns him an automatic 1-year extension. So Coach Signetti and the assistant coaches are all picking up bonus numbers at this point in the year, because every win from this point forward is historical in its own right. And whatever incentives are in those contracts, they're probably going to earn in jest. And I know that Sig also gets a bonus on top of that. I mean, a raise on top of that 1 year extension. And I want to say it's like after or like a $500,000. But you can rest assured that everyone there at Indiana in the administration, from Coach Scott Dolson to the president, Witten, are probably in talks with SIG's representatives in terms of trying to establish a little bit more secure base for him to keep his eyes here and not be wooed or tempted at some other institution that comes calling, because they are. I mean, it's just a matter of fact. You don't come into Indiana and win 10 in a row without attracting attention from around the country with that. And you can bet that some of the bigger institutions that decide to make coaches changes are going to come after Sig. It's just the nature of the business. And I don't think he's a guy that's going to leave, regardless of that situation there with whoever may come calling. I do think he is firmly planted at Indiana, and at this point has no desire to move to another institution. So we shall see what happens. But at the end of the day, making a lot of money and these bonuses and that them and the coaches are earning, and things of that nature. We're going to take a look at some of the stats here from Saturday's game, and let me get over to here. All right, let's first look at the AP coaches poll. I think maybe not. We'll see. Whoops. Let's see if I can get that back up here. It wants to. There we go. I knew I had it somewhere. When you look at the AP poll, you got Oregon and Ohio State 1-2. Ohio State's only lost to Oregon on the year, so that makes perfect sense. Texas at 8-1, Penn State at 8-1, and then you have Indiana there at 10-0. Now, some were going to say that Indiana should be in front of the Penn States of the world and maybe perhaps the Texases of the world. But, again, Indiana, as it pertains to the AP poll, lacks a little bit of brand awareness, and that's just the way it is. And they're probably not going to be put in front of those two teams unless they do something like beat Ohio State in 2 weeks. So they are where they at. It's a matter of just solidifying and potentially maybe moving up. Depends on what happens. Then you've got Tennessee right behind them, BYU at 9-0. They are as well probably a team, maybe even more so than Indiana, thinking they should be higher in the polls in some respects because of what they've been able to do this year. And they're a really good football team. They are a really good football team. They got a quarterback that makes the plays, kind of like Indiana has with Curtis. And they've won into some hostile places and picked up wins. Now, I know Saturday's win at at Utah was a little controversial in some respects, but at the end of the day, they're still undefeated and right now in the driver's seat for themselves. And we'll see what all happens there. Notre Dame is at 8-1. They had a bye this past week, so we're going to see they beat Florida State this past week pretty bad. Notre Dame's schedule finishing out, I'm not quite sure is the strongest right now. Now, of course, they would have thought Florida State would have been a better team when they signed that deal and things of that nature. But right now, I know they still have USC on the schedule, and that'll be an interesting game to see. But right now, 8-1 and firmly in the college football playoffs. Then you see these two lost teams that are in the top 12. Miami, who was at number 4, made the big drop to number 12 at 9-1. some think that they should not even be in it because of the fact they have won a couple games, one under controversy, and the others that they were down by double digits and found their way to come back. And that was kind of what happened to them when they played Georgia Tech Saturday. They were down, and Miami finally came back, but this time they couldn't get the needed points to get ahead of Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech beat them. So in some respects, Miami, living on the edge for a better part of the season, finally could not hold on to that edge and fell off. So they're at number 12 right now at 12-1. But you have Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia, all with 2 losses that are at 9, 10, and 11 in the AP poll, and probably pretty similar in the coaches poll. Now, here's where the dynamic is going to end up happening with some of these issues that are going to come about with this. Are 2-loss teams better than a 1-loss team? You know, that will be the biggest question to be asked. And at this time, you know, there's a lot of people feel that a 2-loss SEC team is better than any 1-loss team for the most part. You know, this is where the brand awareness again comes in and bites you a little bit, because when you look at the 2-loss teams, everybody says Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia are national powers. But let's say Penn State gets a second loss. Are they going to ultimately fall behind? Or are they better than a Miami 1-loss team? I mean, so there's going to be a lot of interesting things that happen here over the last 3 weeks of the season that will be fairly interesting in all this. And it should be, something that could change a lot of things up. So I think it's going to be interesting tonight to kind of see where the college football playoff setup falls in, because some of their projections were based on Georgia being a 1-loss team and Ole Miss being a 3-loss team and not in the picture for the college football playoffs. So it'll be interesting tonight because of that, and how that may or may not impact Indiana. Like I said, I know the algorithm last week were in Indiana's favor, but if they go to Ohio State and maybe don't perform as well, and even though they finished with Purdue and finished strong, how does that play into the category? Or Notre Dame with that one horrible loss to Northern Illinois, how does that play into this? I mean, it's an interesting discussion. So they're gonna start looking at point spreads or how bad you beat somebody. So we'll have you covered here with everything you need to know, especially on Thursday. We come back with no game this week. We'll have some opportunities to have a little further discussion on the college football poll and how that all is shaping up in Indiana's favor or not. And that's going to be one of those things that I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all shapes up either in Indiana's favor or not in that regard. So let's look at some game stats here in that respect from this Saturday. As you can see, Indiana 20-15. Indiana well under their points per game total of 46. So another short coming there as it pertains to points scored. Michigan at 15. The Indiana defense held them they're also under their point total because their scoring average was at 21. Rushing yards, Indiana 40 yards on the day, and Michigan had 69. Indiana had negative 41 yards in lost yardage Saturday to Michigan. And most of that is going to be from sacks, which was the most, I think, in Indiana offense had given up on the day. But Indiana, a team that was rushing for over 202 yards only gets 40 against Michigan. So we'll have some discussion on that. Then you look at passing yards. Indiana had 206 yards of passing to Michigan's 137. Again, well below their total. So both defense held the opposing offense well below their totals output in this ball game. So it was really a defensive battle, field position battle for the better part of the game, and costly mistakes hurt you. And Indiana had some great goal line stands that forced field goals and things of that nature. So Indiana defensively played tremendously, but you could also flip the side of the coin and say Michigan did as well. And both defenses had really good game plans against each offense. Indiana was a little bit better in third down percentage. Again, Indiana coming into this game was averaging about 55% on their conversion downs, and they only came in at 36. They were 5 of 11 on the day. Michigan at 33%, they were like 4 of 15. So both teams there really bad in that category. And then fourth down percentages, that both Indiana should be there at 50%. I'm not sure why that didn't print, because they were one of 2 on the day in their chances on fourth down, I believe. But again, Indiana, I believe that was fourth down. They were also at 50%, but I'd have to look real quick. We won't bother with it right now. Interceptions, Indiana had 1, and Rourke had that interception where Michigan had the 1 fumble there. I think it was in the third quarter, if I'm correct, on the quarterback fumbled it. So the turnover margin for this game was basically a push. Outside of those 2 instances, both teams neither one won the turnover battle. Points off of turnovers were 3 each in that regard. And then red zone percentages there were kind of a push as well in that ball game when it comes to looking at it from that perspective. Indiana and Michigan, like I said, it was a defensive battle, and both defenses played tremendously. A lot of big hits in that ball game. It was a physical ball game. I mean, I'm glad Indiana has a week off, because I thought in that game, outside of maybe the first few minutes of the game, offensively especially, I saw some heavy legs, especially up front. You know, you got to think this offensive line, outside of losing the offensive lineman this week in practice, which doesn't help them any, have played every snap for the better part of the year. I mean, so they've had a lot of snaps on the season, point of attack, banging going on outside of just that, but practices as well. And I saw some heavy legs Saturday, and they need a week of recovery going down the stretch here, because I do think that was a factor in their pass protection. I do think that was a factor in their ability to run the ball, but I did sense that there was some heavy legs out there on Saturday late afternoon. So, but in the end, it was one of those things where we got a big punt return by Williams that basically gave us the points that needed to separate ourselves. We made some bonehead plays Saturday. Maybe it's bonehead calls. We can say what it is on that. The Rourke interception was a completely like, where are you throwing it scenario, but throwing it down there with your backs to the wall or putting him in that position, I'm not all crazy about either. So anyway, some of the things that they had been pretty sharp on as an offense showed up. And it's been the last 2 weeks. When you look at Michigan State and Michigan, even though they're wins, you still have to have an open mind to what are teams doing to you that is taking something away. Right now, I think Indiana has not rushed the football very well the last 2 weeks, and I think it's shown. They haven't done a very good job in the rushing category for the last 2 weeks. They barely had 100 yards against Michigan State, and they barely had 40 yards here against Michigan. And yeah, 41 yards of negative yardage against you, that's going to do that. So I do think they have to be a little critical about, are they doing enough in the run game to give themselves a chance to have balance? Because if you're not effective running the football, teams are going to tee off on you. Michigan was teeing off on Indiana Saturday. It was very evident they were teeing off on them. So I think that's something that has to be scrutinized heading in here to the last 2 weeks of the season. Is we've got to get the running game in a position that is being a big part of the offense with Ellison and Lawton and Black and others, because that's when Indiana's at their best. When Indiana is rushing the football with authority and getting 4 or 5 yards of crack, that's when they're good. When they're struggling to run the football, they're going to struggle to score a bunch of points in some respects. So, again, it's just one of those things they have to look at, and in some respects, I'm not quite sure they're giving themselves a chance to have success, and they're abandoning things in some respects too early. So we'll look at that on the video and stuff. But it's at the end of the day, we'll look at what we talked about, the keys to victory on Saturday, and look how Indiana did. The first one I said they must win the turnover battle, and that was a push. Indiana did get the one big turnover, but the interception negated that advantage. Offense must total 475 yards and 30 points. They were 10 points short, and they were well off on the total there by 239 some yards, but that was a definitely loss. Hoosiers defense, they did get Michigan under 325, and they did hold them to 21 points or less. So the defense played very well there in the hidden yardage battle. I thought Indiana won that one. That is your kicking game. They averaged, I think when everything was said and done, Indiana averaged like a plus 17 yards. So that's almost 2 first downs that they didn't have to get. Special teams create or get a score. Again, Williams' punt return was the biggest shot in the arm Saturday that Indiana had to have, and it happened at a critical moment. Price had been knocked out earlier, as well as I can't think of the other receiver, but at this point in time. So anyway, Williams was more or less the backup. Now, he shared it for the better part of the year, but has become more or less the backup. But he stepped to the plate. He did a great job on fielding the punt. We'll show it on tape, and help set up that field goal in the game Saturday. And then win the money down battle. For the most part, they did, although it wasn't to the extent that you would think Indiana would. They were 5 of 11. Michigan was 4 of 15. So, yes, they did win it, but it wasn't where we thought it needed to be in that regard. So, again, at the end of the day, when you look at it, and you can see where special teams and a solid defense won this football game. And that's a big thing to point out, is that teams that play good defense and have good special teams can overcome an offense that's struggling in whatever part of the game. And I think that's what Indiana's been able to do this year. There's been times where the defense hasn't played all that well, and Indiana's come back and did what it needed to do offensively to support that. Again, they've been pretty good about answering scores. Michigan gets 3 points. Indiana takes the next drive, goes on a 7-play drive and gets a touchdown on a back shoulder throw to Omar Cooper. And that is a demoralizing play for any team, and especially a team like Michigan, who was coming into Indiana with one thing in mind: win and get to 6 games and try to, I guess, in some respects, get retribution against Sig for his comments on the basketball court when he called out, not only Purdue and Ohio State, but also Michigan. And I'm sure that was a ringing audio in their locker room and even practice field all week, that Michigan had going, and they were coming here to become bowl eligible and also to take away whatever opportunities Indiana would have in the college football playoffs. And they about did it. And you got to tip their cap to a team that comes in here in a hostile environment, sold out on CBS Sports, and play the way they did, because Michigan is still Michigan. It's a tradition-rich program and a very prideful program. A lot of good coaches and a lot of really good players. I mean, that Hillman kid at safety, he knocked 2 of our guys out. He hit Ellison and I think it was Price on the pass interference. We'll talk about that one, because I do think that one there that Omar Cooper got called for pass interference wasn't pass interference, but it was also, in my opinion, targeting on Hillman that was not called. But that kid can hit you, and he's pretty good at it. And they got a defensive line with 2 big timers up front that are probably going to be first, second round draft choice. So Indiana by far was playing a very talented defense. And I said that I thought they were a little bit heavy-legged Saturday, or it appeared that way, looking at it from a different point of view, that I think that attributed to Indiana's lack of success offensively on the day. So let's head in over to the video aspect of things. Let's see if we can get that all up here running and rolling. Let's see. All right, let's go here. All right, we're in the coaching video here for Indiana and Michigan. This is Indiana's second drive after Michigan had scored in this game. And this is going to be the throw that he throws to Williams on the boundary. But again, good pass pro here, very good pocket. Now, this pocket would collapse as the day went on. Good job by Horton here, take on this linebacker on the blitz. They're bringing a 5-man pressure, but they're playing zone. And they're actually playing 3 deep in their approach here. But he ends up hitting Williams here on a corner route and makes a great catch on the boundary for a big-time first down. Good time to take a shot there. It was 2nd and 1 at that time. So it was a good play by all. Here's another good play. This was one of the RPOs that Curtis decided to hand it off, because you can tell by the way that these guys are running routes down here. So if I'm going to illustrate this, let's do that. Williams is going to run that big slant that he can throw. You're going to have a bubble out here, and then the outside guy is going to go block, and then you're going to have a route up here, which was probably going to be more of an out route. It's a 6-man box. So if he's going to throw to Mr. Williams, he's probably looking at what this guy's doing. Out here, if he wants to throw the bubble, he's counting numbers. So in this scenario with a 6-man box, in theory, he's probably looking to throw it in that occasion, at least I think, because the backer comes. See, to me, I would say that he's reading one of these backers. So, like this backer comes and he's got soft corner up here. I thought maybe he'd throw it up at the top, but he didn't. So, again, it's interpretation of the play and such, and whatever that is. And looking at it from this perspective now, I would assume that in this play he reads that backer and he doesn't come, and that gets him off out here, and so everything is off in that regard. So, clear all. Yes, I want to take this off. Okay. Let's go on to the next play here. All right. So, like, here is an RPO that he's going to throw to Williams. He knows right now when that guy goes across the formation with him, that is a big tip. He knows it's man-to-man coverage in that regard. And so he decides to throw it here off of that and gets a completion. But I don't necessarily think the reads were all clear on the RPOs this week. I don't think there was enough times that you could say, hey, you should throw it there, or hey, he should have handed it off there. I just don't think there was enough, and probably part of that was because of Michigan's defense, or at least that's how I'm interpreting it by watching tape. This is just a great throw, good protection, puts it on the money, a back shoulder, and they answer. Okay, moving on, second quarter. See, here's another one that's a zone read. And so, to me, you got him running an out count against a soft corner, so that's good. And I think he's reading this guy. So, I may be wrong, I may be right. But once that guy steps up, I think he's got full, authority to throw it out there, especially if you get a good cushion. Okay, 1st and 10 and a great double move. It's a 1st and 10. You got the ball on the 36-yard line. Michigan's reeling a little bit here. They're playing in their man-to-man coverage. So Shanahan calls Surratt on a double move, which he executes perfectly. And this is why you get the big touchdown here, because of that and execution. See, that's what I'm talking about. Some of this guy's leaking through. This defensive lineman here is a big-time dude. But when we're blocking him, guy just getting through, and now it's not what we had seen, but a great throw and catch. And it's hard to believe with that was Indiana's last score of the game that happened in the second quarter. No more touchdowns, some field goals, but it's crazy how that all transpired. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oops. Oh, this is, again, it's 1st and 10. They had just gotten a nice play down here on a pass. And this is the one I wasn't too crazy about coming out and throwing it, because they're looking for a home run ball. They're looking for the wheel route. And again, the pressure, the protection wasn't great. We get beat up top and it's stripped. And fortunately, Indiana gets on it there. But again, we went from a 1st and 10 in their territory to now being something like 2nd and 18. And now you're off schedule and behind the chains. Now this is the penalty. Okay. So Indiana here is 3rd and 5. It's definitely looking like you got some type of man free. So what's going to happen is he's going to come in here and then run what we call a K route. Or in the old days, I called it a switch route because it was different than the smoke. He gets caught up with him, but I don't see him intentionally trying to pick this guy. What he does is he comes off the ball like that, and then he comes back over the middle, and he hits him for what appears to be a pretty big play. This is the Hillman, and he just sits here and eyes it, and he lights him up about right there, which I think is I think is targeting. As you can see how this goes on here, they're bringing a stun at the top, trying to get guys free, and we're losing on the backside here because you got a linebacker coming in the B gap. So the back does a great job of picking up this blitz off the edge. Now, what Omar does there, to me, is not offensive pass interference, because he's running his route. He's entitled that, and he's not trying to block him. Now, he does collision him, but I don't see anything there that, in my opinion, is with malice. But again, it's all up to the official there, and it's probably going to get called more times than not. But you can see how this route is developing nicely for Curtis. And you can see right here on this catch, to me, he's hitting in the head shoulder area, and he's leading with his head. That, to me, even though he's going to the side, it doesn't matter. He's using his forearm, and he's hitting above the neck area. And to me, I thought that should have been called targeting. Now, the one on Justice Ellison on the sideline, that was not targeting. Some people say it's the same hit. I say, no, it's not. But again, so we get a big play down here, and this is huge, because the play had stood and not a penalty, Indiana is going to get the ball on the 1 yard line. And so now it's taken away by the OPI, and we lose pretty good receiver there, and we have to settle for 3 points on that drive because that play ended up taking us way back. So that was a critical penalty in that ball game that cost us, because we're in the score zone. Last thing you want to do is take any penalty. It doesn't matter. Offsides, holding, hands to the face, whatever that is, because those are only going to hurt you, and you're not going to overcome it. And that's what happened. And Indiana had to set up for a field goal there, which they got points out of it. But if they had gotten the ball down to that 1 yard line, they would have been set up for a chance to get in the end zone. And, ball game is essentially over. Now, here's the start of the third quarter. And let's see. Yeah. Williams is coming across in motion. So nothing is man here now. They're bumping it. So they're going to some type of cover 3 or cover 1. If you can see this, that's more of a cover 1, because this guy rolling down's got Williams. All right. Now, again, this is, to me, is a RPO. Surratt's going to come off the ball, and he's just going to run a button hook route and set it down. He's coming, and he's going to run out here into the flat. So my guess is Curtis is looking at this guy potentially as his read key in this scenario, but it's man-to-man. So I'm not sure why he's throwing it to Surratt, because the man beater, if anything, is Williams coming out here to the flat. And see, I don't see anything there. If this is an RPO, you got 6 in the block, and you got 6 blockers theoretically for this play. Why he's throwing it? Because this, to me, is pure handoff. And he decides to pull it, and we don't do a good enough job on the route on blocking out per se. But I think the throw's down here at the bottom to Williams because of that. But again, that right there was detrimental in the ball game from the standpoint is it gave Michigan hope at that time. It gave Michigan hope at that time. And the defense did a tremendous job of coming in there and doing a great job with that. Let's see here. All right, 7:15. This is a critical conversion. It's 3rd and 8. It's 3rd and 8. Indiana's going to run a pure pass here, quick pass to get in and out of his hands, and he hits Williams, who does a great job on this route and gets that critical first down there that enables Indiana to get to the point where they needed to be. But that was huge because if they're punting there and 8 minutes left in the game, that could have been a really bad scenario there. Then on 2nd and 9 here in this drive, Indiana again going to throw it, and he hits Williams again. I mean, this is a great route. This is that some call it a skinny post. I call it a 5-step slant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and boom. Great job in getting the first down at a time that they needed it after that punt return. All right, here's some defensive clips. Again, up front, those guys, did a great job Saturday of battling up front on the day, really holding Edwards, and their running game, could have been just as daunting as Indiana's in terms of ability. And then Warren all day, he makes a great throw here. This is one of their, I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, maybe first drive of the game. But it's 1st and 10. Indiana's bringing heat. They miss a hold here. And I'll show you where. And they were missing holding all day. It was like they decided they weren't going to throw the flag. But when you watch this, D'Angelo gets held by Edwards right there. That's holding. He's grabbing him. I mean, that's as clear as hold as they are. And there are 2 officials in the background there. You got the referee and basically the guy that puts the ball down every play. But how they missed that, boy, I have no idea. But this was a great throw, and Indiana does a great job of preventing them from, getting in, as this is one of those plays that I don't know how this happened, but thank God it did, because this changed a potential touchdown into a field goal. And then he grabs Jonesy there. And I don't know what these guys are looking at, but it's crazy. Again, great pressure, getting the arms up, hands up in the air by Farrar there, and knock it down. Again, it's just defense played really good. This is the fumble, and we're bringing pressure, and this would have been easy for Jonesy here to just taking the guy coming in motion, and they're not going to give it to him here, but he does a great job of getting right there. He gets hands on it, knocks it out, and we're there for the fumble. So a huge play in that game for Indiana. And again, 17-3, Indiana goes in at halftime. So it was big. This is the hit before halftime. Now, what's going to happen here is, because there's 148, it's still the first half. So there will be no continue on suspension. He'll be ready to go. But when you look at this, that right there is classic targeting, and it's dangerous. He's got his head down, and that is a dangerous way to tackle, especially a defender, because of what could happen there. Now, it doesn't, but that is by definition what targeting looks like. So I had no problem with this call, because I thought it was well interpreted down here. Now, Indiana had just letting them score made them, I think, go 4 downs to score. So they forced it here. 9:35 left. This is the 2-point play. I mean, this is as big a play as there is in the game, because difference between being tied or maintaining that 2-point lead for Indiana. And they do a great job here. Number one, getting some pressure late, albeit, but the DBs do a great job because there's just nobody open. I don't know who he's going to throw it to here because they all did a great job. I mean, May being the guy bending over there, if he saw him sooner, he could have ripped it, but there's just nobody here. And he ends up throwing it, but almost catches it there instead of knocking it down. So, but that was a huge play in that game. Huge play in that game. Again, great pressure. Great pressure here. This is the drive that solidifies the drives. Here's the 4th and 10. Got to get a stop. Indiana brings 4. Kind of a zone blitz mentality here. Now, they're looking for Loveland. I mean, that was their cat. I mean, this guy right here is the guy that has done all the damage on the year, and he's a really good player. They're looking for him. He gets the play, but Fish does a great job of stopping it. They get their depth, playing their keys, got a little pressure, and then rallying up to the ball. But a great job there defensively of taking care of what they needed to take care of. Here's that one field goal by their kicker. I mean, this thing is 56 yards, if I'm not mistaken. And I think this would have been good from, 60 yards. But this kid is a really good kicker. He's going to have a chance to be in the NFL someday. But I threw that on there because it's impressive. And then here's the punt return. Great job by all the punt return guys. They're doing a great job. Everything's in front of them. That's a good job down here at the bottom by running through this defender here. I want you to watch this guy here. He's coming, and watch Indiana's player. He gets in his way by throwing his arms up because he doesn't want to get a penalty for pushing in the back. So the best way to avoid that is what he's doing here. And you're seeing a lot of teams do this now. And it's avoiding a potential penalty there. And then just great athleticism, guys trying to get blocks, good cut. I mean, that was a huge moment in that ball game, of course. And then Ratty's 50, nice field goal. This kid's been ice, and that's a beautiful sight when a kicker knocks it through like that, because everybody loves him and you're not going to punish him for not making it. But it was a game that Indiana, by all practical purposes, hey, they won it. It was ugly, but it was a game they needed, and it showed some fight and determination to, buckle up the chin strap and find ways to get it done. And that's what they did. But heading into the bye week, they need it. They need this bye week because I do think they had some heavy legs on Saturday, especially up front. We also lost the offensive lineman. So, now we've lost 2 starters on the year that are gone. From what I understand, Evans, I think that was who it was, did something with his Achilles. How that happened, I don't know. And it was Thursday when that happened. So I hope that it wasn't in some type of 11-on-11 situation, good on good, that it happened in, because on a Thursday, I'd scratch my head at that a little bit. But losing him didn't help the thing. I think Stevens was the one that went in at left guard. Gives them another week to mesh that group together and try to get some depth at that group, because they're sorely lacking depth at that group. I mean, think from this point forward, it'd be hit or miss on who would be that next guy, and depending on who's available. But give them a week to get their legs underneath them, get more, familiar with themselves up front now that they got a new guy in that position. The other thing is they've got to look honestly at some things offensively speaking in the running game that they got to get back to, and they're sorely missing. And I think they're missing the counter trade game that they were playing early in the season with Horton pulling or their tackle pulling, whoever. We got two guys, one kicking out, one pulling through. I think they're missing that, and I also think they're missing the power game that they were running at the beginning of the year with some success. I'm seeing way too much zone, and I know zone is a popular play because it's one of the simplest plays to run, but it's also the hardest play to block in terms of working on levels and things of that nature. But I think you got to complement that with some power running game, downhill running game, and not always a finesse running game, because penetration kills the zone play really bad. And not to say that the others don't, but if you're getting a team that's pretty stout at the point of attack and they're, stymieing you a lot, then you've got to find ways to block down, kick out, pull through. And I think they've got to find ways to do that now, because they've been held to 2 games in a row where they haven't rushed for over 100 yards, and they're a team that's been averaging over 200 yards. And so when you're seeing that limited production in the run game, that should be a red flag. Well, Thursday, we'll be back with you live. Thursday stream will be live, and we'll go through some of the things this off week, a little more on the recruiting front, what is happening there. Juju Lewis, is he, isn't he? And, that's the $64,000 question, but we'll see where the Hoosiers stand with their recruiting efforts at this point in the year, and talk a little bit about what can you would expect during a bye week and how they can utilize it in a productive way. Well, I thank you for joining me again here on the Hoosier Football Tailgate. Till Thursday, you've been watching the Hoosier Football Tailgate and Coach Griff right here on Believe.